It's profound.
Wow.
So you have like instant results.
This is
instant
amazing.
results. And you know what's even cooler about that is you actually realize that you're the one that facilitates the healing. No one else does it except for you. Like you are in complete and utter control of healing your own body. How cool is that?
Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast, where I interview space holders from all over the world. I am your host, my name is Karolina, and I am the Connection Catalyst. I help spiritual entrepreneurs experience deeper connection with themselves, with others, and with the universe. Today on the show, we have Chloe Hilton, a plant witch, a human portal, and a cacao dealer. Welcome to the show, Chloe. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am super excited to talk to you because, Cacao Dealer is one of the best identities that I have, that I have described on this podcast. I freaking love this. And I love cacao as well. I run cacao ceremonies, heart opening and cacao ceremonies as well. So this is certainly one of the topics that I would like to touch upon. But actually, I'm super curious about the human portal. Like, what do you mean by human portal?
I have birthed 3 children, so you couldn't be any more of a portal when once you've birthed children. So I think it was also the catalyst for my spiritual evolution, birthing my daughter. And when I kind of went back and sat with what that experience was, I was like, oh my God, I was opening a portal for her and myself. And now I've done that 3 times. So every time it's been like a death and rebirth. So that's the intention behind the human portal, because hey, bringing souls down from the sky and bringing them to earth, that's pretty magical.
Wow, it is. And yeah, 3 times. That sounds intense. I mean, I'm scared of even giving birth once, and you've already done it 3 times. Good job,
3 times. I know. And I did it in such a short window too. So it was so huge and transformative. Like I had my 3 children within 4 years. So it was like bang, bang, bang. And I was only 24 when I birthed my daughter. Wow. So was still really kind of trying to find who I was. And through that very rapid transition of becoming a mother, I kind of started coming home to myself, No more hiding when you've got little ones like reflecting back to you all your bullshit. You're like, oh shit. I have some work to do here.
3 of them. 3 reflections, 3 mirrors just running around. Yeah. That sounds intense. So how did you navigate having 3 children and having your business and having your spiritual evolution and all of these things?
Oh, man. I think it's one of those things that I'll look back when I'm like 70, sitting there with my cup of tea going, how the fuck did I do that? So my daughter was a surprise. So it wasn't a planned pregnancy, and it just put me on this trajectory so quickly. So I had just kind of come out of the cusp of anorexia. So I was still not 100% comfortable with my body and who I was. I was only 24, like I said, and all of a sudden my identity was shifting into becoming a mom. It was like, whoa, this is huge. But as soon as I knew that I was pregnant with her, I had this full consciousness shift of like, I don't want to put shit in my body. And I didn't even know what organic food was back then. Like, but I'm only going to eat organic food. And I really started to be super mindful of my lifestyle in that sense. And I think it's easier to care for yourself at that point when you're not completely self-aware, when you can relate it to somebody else. So it was more like I was doing it for my baby, but really she was doing it for me. So that's why I say like she was the biggest part of my spiritual awakening or my own healing. And I didn't know that I was having a girl as well. So when she was born, it was like, wow, okay, I got to sort my shit out now. Like no more mucking around. I've got a big responsibility. I've got to heal. Otherwise I'm passing on through my red thread, my bullshit to my baby girl that will then pass it on to her children. And that was huge. Like really sitting with that and being like, wow, this is not just yours anymore. Mm-hmm. You can't, you're not here to muck around. And so, yeah, it was like me and her against the world when she was born. And then when she was 10 months old, I fell pregnant again. So didn't really have much time to adjust that was it. I was in motherhood, in the trenches. And so I'd say she was the kickstart And then being the female, she was like, the start of my healing. And then my son was the start of my spiritual growth. And that's where I found yoga and meditation, because I noticed I'd never felt more embodied than when I became a mother, because I had to actually sit through all my shadow, being pregnant and having no vices. Because prior to that, if I was feeling crap, I'd drink alcohol, have a cigarette, not eat, go partying, do all those things. And then I was pregnant and I can't.
And then
I
all
can't
these
run from
coping
myself
mechanisms
anymore.
were gone. You couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, they're gone. And I'm like, whoa, okay, there's some shadow work here. This is deep, And at the time I wasn't completely aware that I was masking them with my children, because they became the focus, they became the pride and joy, and everything was good and my life was amazing and how grateful I am to be a mum and that my body could do this after everything that it went through. And then the little niggles started to come back up. The anxiety started to creep up. I could feel my nervous system like sitting on edge all the time. And because I'd been in such a dark space, I was like, I can't go back there with 2 babies. I can't do that. I can't do that to them. So what's next, Chloe? And that was when yoga turned up. And I was like, okay, and I didn't know what it was. I was 26. I didn't really have a spiritual community around me. I was the weird woman that gave her kids organic food. It was like I had a second head because I didn't I was young and I didn't have community. It's so weird, I know. And then I also looked after them holistically too. I had this huge resistance to the Western world and how we did things, and which is really funny because I came from pharmacy. So I started undoing everything that I had ever known, but in a way that was more like a remembering than a learning. And so I was really mindful of how I would support their bodies naturally, and that kind of led into the yoga, to the meditation. Through that, I learned how to be able to sit with and control aspects of my emotions. And I was like, wow, why are we not taught this stuff at school? Like, why am I learning this now? It was wild. And then it actually took me to a different level of parenting, where I didn't look at it as a parent-child dynamic. It was like I said earlier, they reflected back to me so much of my shit that I was like, holy crap, like they are my teacher. I'm not their teacher. I've just birthed them. Like I've just brought them here, and really I'm to learn from them. These guys are going to be my greatest teachers. And that again was one of those moments where you're like, everything that I've been taught is so wrong.
Oh yes.
Oh my God, I'm undoing it all. And yeah, through like being guided into like the spiritual community with yoga and meditation, I kind of felt like I was finding my people. I was like, oh, these are my people. Where have you guys been forever? And
you found your soul
I
fam.
fell pregnant with my third. I found my fam, yeah. And then my third came along as a surprise, and I call him like my fire, right? So it was like, I took the first step to go on my healing journey. I activated my spiritual awakening, and then he gave me the biggest kick up the ass you could imagine. It was like, no more stuffing around, mama, here we go. So this kid's never been to Earth before. He's like fire. Everything is so exciting and new, and he has no fear. And I was like, mesmerized by this child. Like, why can't everyone be like this, embody this magic? But he was the one that really pulled me into my truth, because I was in a very horrible narcissistic relationship. And I remember just looking at him one day thinking, I would never allow this to be okay for any of my children. Why am I allowing them to witness me think this is okay for me? This is not enough.
Oh,
and
yes.
I made the big decision to become a single mum, and every door opened from that moment. It was like the universe was just waiting, like, come on, Chloe, come on, you can do it. And I was like, oh, I want to be a single mum, and that was, the last thing that I wanted, and I wanted my family together. But I knew in my bones that was the next step that my journey had to take. And that's when my business started and boomed. And that's when I really found my people. And that, besides my children, finding my community was the most expansive part of my growth journey. Like when you have your people and you can truly see yourself reflected back to yourself, everything shifts. So that's kind of the start. for me.
Oh my God, this is an
And then it's
amazing
been like a
story.
roller coaster of magic.
Oh my God, I love your story.
Yeah.
And I really want to honor you for taking the step and to be so courageous to be a single mom and to drop the relationship that didn't serve you. Because I feel like so many people would go more for safety and certainty rather than for what is actually good for them, because they would like to stay in comfort zone and just be like, okay, I'm going to be supported, and how am I going to do this by myself? And I have 3 children. That's like a lot. And, you took the step forward for yourself. You stood up for yourself and for your children, I guess, as well, because I've been in a narcissistic relationship, fortunately only for like 2 or 3 months, but I already know how it feels to be there.
Yeah.
And
And you don't know it when you're in it. And
I
it's,
know,
you step out and you're like, what?
how does it even
What was
happen
that?
that you can be so manipulated, so controlled, that you're just like, yeah, it only afterwards you're like, what the hell did I do? Like, what the hell, why the hell did I agree for this, right? But yeah, I feel like it's a
Right,
common
exactly.
problem actually in relationships, that people are just so much in it that then they cannot see, and oftentimes they defend even their partner or their friend or whoever is narcissistic. They're
Yeah.
like, no, they're good doing that because they love me, or no, they are sometimes just like that, but then then they are nice or whatever. And I feel like so many narcissists do this kind of like intermittent reinforcement, which is this pattern where they are giving you like so much love and so much acceptance, and everything is so good, and then they deprive you of that, and then you're kind of like, it's kind of like a drug. You're waiting for them to give you the love and the acceptance again, and it's kind of like a peak and then down, and then peak and then
Yeah.
down, and that makes a human kind of addicted to this
It
person
does.
in a
Yeah.
way. And so
Yeah.
did you encounter this kind of dynamic as well?
Yeah. I think, yeah, definitely did. And then it's been an undoing to now undo that damage in my relationship, even though my current relationship, all of my kids have come down. They're so cheeky. Go up to bed, please. So because it was so programmed in me to think that that was the way that you operated in a relationship, it's just kind of been embedded in who I am, because so much of it happened during big parts of my growth. So I'm having to undo now like a muscle memory to that response within a relationship. It heightens abandonment issues. It heightens lack of self-worth. And you really, like, you already have those things generally anyway as a human. And then to experience in your adulthood again in a different way, it's like, oh God, now I've got another layer to kind of pull apart and undo. But I think the beauty, like, I'm definitely grateful for it. I would never take that time back, because it was the biggest part of my growth and my evolution, really, in terms of honoring who and what I am. And I saw it all unfold as soon as I shut that door and stepped out, and then stepped into the world as who I really am. And my business exploded. I was able to care for my children like by myself as a single mom, which is amazing. That's not a narrative that we hear a lot. Did I lose you?
Yeah, this is so good to hear. It is amazing, because I feel like there are so many women that are still stuck in these very unfulfilling relationships, and they need the courage, and they need to be like, okay, I can do this. And then, because it's kind of like you're stating your boundary, it's like, okay, universe, I'm not going to tolerate this shit anymore. I'm stepping up, and I want something better. And only then the universe can
Yeah.
be like, yeah, okay, then we will give you something better, because now you're not setting your standard for so low. And so yeah, again,
Yeah.
I'm really really proud of you that you took this step, and that you're
Thank
so
you.
brave, and that you were raising 3 kids by yourself, and you're here, and you have a business, and you're just so amazing, doing so amazing. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's amazing.
Thank
I
you.
really I really love it. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing this
I
story.
hope
It's really
that's
inspiring.
Yeah, I hope that it's something that resonates with women, because we do stay in places that don't serve us, because we're kind of taught it. It's passed down from generations, like, just stay, for safety, for security, for comfort. And there's nothing comfortable or safe or secure about that. And it's, that cliche saying, like, once you take the first step, everything's going to be okay, everything falls into place. It really does. Like, when I left, my business didn't really exist. I had 3 kids, and I had to pay my mortgage, and I wasn't even earning enough to pay my mortgage. And then turn that around in 10 months' time to have a 6-figure income big business, and be able to travel the world and move back home to where I live now in the mountains as a single mum was just such a mean feat after what I'd kind of traversed. So, looking at my life, in 10-year blocks, my God, the polarity from 10 years ago to what it is now is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And it just shows you, we hear it all the time. Anything's possible. We just have to be committed to ourselves and our growth and just have to trust, and a big part of that is what we were chatting about before is letting go, not having attachment to things, knowing that everything is playing out perfectly for us. And it's a hard concept to completely embody all the time. And, I don't always embody it all the time. There's moments where I'm like so in my humanness and I'm like, I don't want to let go of that. I don't want change. I don't want to have to do this shadow work again. I've already done that. But then it's like breathing into it going, all right, we know this is for my greater good. I know it's already all mapped out. I'm going to be fine.
Yes. And
with that logical mind.
It's especially present, this topic of letting go right now, because as we are just touch quickly upon on this topic before we started chatting, in Australia, in Byron Bay and all these like little towns in there were floods and people were losing everything. Like some of the people lost completely everything. And I just feel like this theme of letting go in present times, both pandemics and the war and the floods and everything, is just so present right now. And so I really wanted to talk about it on the podcast as well, because I mentioned before we started recording that for me, I always try at least or intend to hold this perspective that everything is happening for a reason and everything has a divine plan behind it. And for example, for some people, from one of my best friends, she didn't have her house flooded as the only like district in Byron Bay where the whole town was pretty much under water. And for her, maybe she didn't have to go through this lesson of letting go of everything or some possessions or whatever. And for some other people, it was a necessary lesson to go through, because there is a reason why things happen to specific people and to specific people they don't, because this triggers the childhood trauma in them. And then they have to heal from whatever this situation has brought, right? And it's like, I really try to hold this perspective that everything happens for a reason. Even this crazy situation with Ukraine and everything now, although it brings so much fear and no one knows what's going to happen, I feel like it's still there to show us what we have inside. Like, is there a war inside of us? Is there fear inside of us? Is there powerlessness, victimhood? What do these countries represent in us? How do we reflect it? Like, because if the collective consciousness didn't have a conflict inside of them, like inside of each human being, there would be no conflict outside, because the outside is the inside, right? So yeah, what would be your advice to people who just lost everything by being, with this flood that happened, or they lost everything by being just bombarded by Russia? Or what would be your advice to make it easier for people to let go?
I think for us here in Australia, I don't know if this is so much advice, but more an observation. Prior to COVID, we had really, really, really intense bushfires kind of take over all of Australia in the January. And then, by the March, we were in lockdowns. We're in Melbourne, so we were in some of the harshest lockdowns in Australia. And then we've come out, like what feels like we've kind of come out of the COVID bubble, and now, half of the East Coast is flooding. So I think for us, the silver lining in that is like how incredibly well it's brought community together after being so segregated for so long. Like, watching from the sidelines, we have friends up the East Coast too. My sister-in-law got stuck up in Byron. She's a doula and she had some births and couldn't get back to Melbourne. And just witnessing the human spirit come together like it has over the last week or so is mind-blowing. And part of that, like without being too generalist, is a bit of the Aussie spirit too. Like we are really, really good at banding together when we need to. And it's just, again, so polarizing after 2 years of completely being separated, like locked in our homes pretty much. Where we were in Melbourne, we couldn't go 5Ks from our house in our car. Like it was crazy, to now being so immersed in community and love and connection and rebuilding. Seems kind of symbiotic to me. After that big, huge separation. And yeah, it's so hard to let go as a human, and especially when you're in it. Like we're still so in it here in Australia, they're still so in it up in the Northern Rivers, to fathom the concept of the lesson right now would be far too much for the human to actually take on. The trauma would be too much. But I think in hindsight, it will be that beautiful moment of non-attachment, you know, because really we're not attached to anything in life. We're born with nothing, we die with nothing. Do you know what I mean? We don't take anything when we leave this world. And it seems to be one of the hardest things us humans have the ability to actually embody, is letting go and is surrender. But Mother Nature's really incredible at pushing us into those lessons. And I also think too, it's a reflection. Like whatever goes on catastrophically with nature, I believe is, you know, only the dialogue of our internal landscape as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good external representation of that collective consciousness, what we're feeling. You know, the watery depths, like, and we're in Pisces season 2, so it's like, you know, could it get any more like weird?
Yeah, I feel
those watery
Maybe
depths,
it
and then
can.
half of the east coast is flooded. You know, it's just like, wow, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and it's crazy what happens with Australia as well, because before the pandemic there were the fires, right, just taking over the whole Australia. I feel like Australia has been on the just I don't know, crazy
under
ride.
siege for so long. Yeah, and I feel like I really do feel like that, you know, we do here as Aussies have to really embrace that concept of non-attachment. Like, even if I bring it down to a really materialistic level of materialistic might not have been the right word, but like how many, you know, lost their businesses during COVID. Like you said you lived in Melbourne for a while. It is like the hotspot for nightlife, like the entertainment capital. It's the culture's amazing, the food's amazing. We're world known for our restaurants and our coffee and, you know, our shows and our theatre and our sport, and that went dead silent for 2 years, you know, and people didn't recover, and businesses that had been around for, you know, decades shut down. And it's like, wow, okay, that's another way of looking at completely letting go of something, completely letting go of an identity that you've become through your bricks and mortar business or your success or who you are within the community, and having to rebuild. And I even had my own experience with that within my own business. You know, I'm lucky enough to work from home. And it was a real blessing it was really quite humbling to kind of sit in that space of like, I'm so grateful that I took the plunge to be an entrepreneur 4 or 5 years prior to COVID, so that I was still in control of my income, so to say. And I could support other people from being in that space. But I still took a hit, and it really like made me sit with my ego. Shit, how much have I hidden behind my success? How much of my identity is attached to that label that I've created 3-4 years prior? And that was huge. That death and rebirth was massive. You know, I can only imagine what other people have gone through on a bigger scale, where they've actually completely lost their businesses, their homes. You know, so many marriages have broken down during this time because we're sitting in spaces that we haven't had to for a really long time. People are home with their kids going, shit, this is not easy. They're home with their wives and their husbands going, I don't really know you, you know? What's going on here?
It's like the best.
And then on the flip side, there's been so much growth and so much expansion as well. So there's like
that's what I wanted to say.
Extreme polarities.
It's like the best way to show you your shadow. It's like, oh shit, now I'm with this person 24/7, and now I need to handle this shit. There's no escaping to work, or there's no, you know, putting your kids to school or whatever. You're there with them, and you just get triggered. And I feel like that's actually one of the good aspects of that, the whole lockdown. You know, that people could really see like, okay, there's shit in our relationships now that we need to work through. You know, because we cannot have space from each other that much. So it's been really crazy. And I actually have one more question now. I just remembered about your story, because you said you had anorexia before. So I'm really curious to know, like, is it your child that helped you fully stop it and heal, or did you heal it before that, or how did you come out of it? Because I feel like some people really struggle with it, and they maybe don't know like where it comes from and how to deal with it. So what was your story of coming out of it?
Yeah, so my journey, it's so interesting when you look back I kind of I see it as not myself. So when I like, externally look back at that experience, I'm like, wow, who is that girl? Although she's probably the part that's changed my life the most, you know what I mean? But I even look at how I showed up. I cut my hair short. I dyed it blonde, peroxide blonde. Like, I really changed the way that I looked, so that that experience almost wasn't attached to the identity that I would become, or the Chloe that I knew that I was deep down. But without that experience, I would absolutely not be who I am today. And so my journey with anorexia was hard and fast. So I was diagnosed really quickly and hospitalized really quickly, because I am a very competitive, committed human. If my mind anchors into something, good or bad, I'm doing it at 110%. So my anorexia journey was quite different to a lot of others, because a lot of anorexics still eat. I stopped eating completely, which, from what I'm told, is actually quite rare. Not many people do that. So my body was started to shut down really rapidly. So I was hospitalized at 20, I think I was 21, because I tried to take my life twice, because I was so sick of the noises in my head. And by that time, they had to put me under assessment. So probably this was the start of my spiritual awakening, maybe. So, because I have a different concept of like mental illness or mental health. That's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, so I was hospitalized. I think I was admitted at about 39 kilos, and they discharged me 6 weeks later at 37, because I didn't want to get better. So I was kicked out of the facilitation unit and on my own at 21. And I had a beautiful partner at the time, incredible partner. He's one of the reasons why I'm alive today. And he stood by me the whole way through. So it was him and my mum. They were like my biggest support team. And I remember leaving that institution thinking, well, my two options now is I keep going and I die, because my liver's shutting down and my eyes have gone yellow and I'm starting to get jaundice and I can't breathe properly and I have insomnia and I'm on a cocktail of medication just to try and keep my body functioning. Like, that's not living. Mm-hmm. It's just surviving, existing with all the pain. Or I heal, but I'm going to have to do it myself, because the system has just fucked me. So I have big responsibility on my hands now. And for me, being in the psychiatric unit really showed me the inability to understand the emotional body, because they were treating me for a physical illness and my illness was not physical. Mm-hmm. It was all of my emotion being shown on my physical body. So I was in there. There was no nutritionist, which is ridiculous when you're trying to refeed an anorexic that's 38 kilos. There was the psychologist was on maternity leave. Like, it was horrendous. Like, I can't even tell you. And I just thought, how the fuck is someone meant to heal in here? Like, you don't even have the basic support, let alone having any understanding of advanced support. And I knew that all of mine was emotion. I knew that, and most anorexics and people with eating disorder, it's connected to an emotional disturbance within the body that then becomes a chemical disturbance, then becomes the physical illness that we see. So I remember going home with my mum and thinking, fuck, I got to do this myself. This has got to be my choice now. And I got the best holistic team like ever. I had a psychologist that she was amazing. I remember I used to ring her and be like, I'm not coming today. I've put on a kilo. I'm like healed. And she's like, no, Chloe, get in the car. These are the days that you need to come. Get your ass here. Like, she always called me out. She knew, because you become so manipulative, because your subconscious and your conscious mind are doing two totally different things. Mm-hmm. So the only way that they could get the truth out of me was my auntie and uncle doing muscle testing on me, because I would lie. Chloe, the human Chloe, would lie, but my body wouldn't. So they would always find out what was going on. So I couldn't hide from anything anymore. And then I kind of started the journey of like slowly refeeding myself and getting comfortable with having to sit with the shadow aspects and really what was lying underneath. And then I fell pregnant at 24. And so I wasn't completely healed. I was comfortable to where I'd healed to. I hadn't pushed the edges. So I'd probably put on about 10 kilos, enough to get my period and enough to fall pregnant. And that for me was comfort, but I was still very restrictive with my food. So it was all control for me. It was like a game of control. You know, it can be so chaotic in my world around me. This person can be pissing me off. This can be going on in my relationship. This can be going on with my family, but I can control this part. And because I'd been able to hide the control so well as I got better, no one really kind of noticed that I was sitting on the fence. You know, oh, she's put on 10 kilos, she looks great, she's pregnant, everything's awesome. But I hadn't actually dealt with the underlying emotional shit. I just got myself back to living again. And then, that was that eye-opening moment of like, shit, I can't fall back into my vices. I can't not eat when I'm emotional. I can't smoke cigarettes. I can't drink alcohol. Can't do all those things. And then I had her. And I fell back into a bit of a cycle. I started purging again. So I'd eat and then throw up. And I remember having this vision as I did it, thinking, what if she catches me one day when she can get up and walk and she sees her mum bending over the toilet throwing up what she just ate for lunch? Like, what am I actually doing here? This is not something that I want to teach my daughter. Like I've been through the darkest parts of shaming your body and harming yourself because you can't sort your emotional trauma out. I don't want that for her, you know? And so like I said before, it's easier to heal when you're so broken and sad and have so much trauma. It's easier to look at someone else and heal for them than it is for yourself, you know? So she became that for me, not only physically because she made me surrender to that process, being pregnant and breastfeeding. She did it for me emotionally too, because I could then see me in her. I could see this beautiful little girl thinking, that's me. That's me. And if I can heal here with her, I can heal me, the little child within myself. And I think when I came to that place, and I had the kids all so quickly, and there was no room for the noise anymore because my life was so busy and there was so much more that was important. And I energetically and emotionally let go of that aspect of control. My body didn't change. I didn't put weight on. I didn't obsess about food anymore. You know, like all the things that felt so important prior to having my daughter just went away. Because I'd made that commitment to myself to heal. I'd made that commitment to her in particular to heal. It was like my body could actually calm down and take a load off and was like, oh, great, cool. We don't have to worry anymore. She's good. And so in saying that, you know, but from then, that's when I've done all the emotional work. So, you know, breath work has been one of the most profound healing modalities for me. I healed so much through that, but also just coming back and trusting my body, like having that deep reverence and honoring for, holy shit, you have put it through absolute hell. It's rewarded you with 3 beautiful babies and you're still so healthy and vibrant and mobile and active, and wow, girl, like, come on. You better start honoring that shit.
That's amazing. That's freaking amazing. Yeah, it's such an inspiring story. And it's so interesting what you say, that it's all mental and emotional, because, for example, I've been fasting a lot, and I feel like when I did 3 weeks fast with like the intention of coming into my spirit and really connecting with the divine and everything, this is what happened. And my body, of course, I lost some weight, because if you do dry fasting for a few days and you do the next, 2.5 weeks on water, obviously your body is going to lose some weight. But I felt like better than ever, because my intention behind it was just to be more in my spirit, right? So it was actually very good for me to do this. And for people who have this intention behind, then you direct the energy into the direction you want to go. And if you, for example, don't eat because you want to control, or because whatever, you want to lose weight, or whatever else is there, then your body is going to respond accordingly as well, right? And this happened to one of my best friends as well, when he did also the 3 weeks fasting process, and he got so skinny. And then when he let go of the idea that he has to gain weight, he started gaining weight. Like just without, anything else, just the fear of being skinny was gone.
Oh,
So then
yeah.
his body just naturally started gaining more weight. And it's like, it's all emotional, really. I mean, I believe that all kind
All.
of physical issues, if they are not mechanical, although I kind of believe that mechanical issues are also brought by a specific energy, and that's why we experience it. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
all physical issues are a result of our emotional shit inside. And if we
100%. 100%.
yeah, and if we
Yeah.
resolve the cause that is emotional, then we also
Mm.
will help to resolve the physical. And of course, like I've gone through the healing of my digestive system, and I feel like both approaches of physical and emotional healing are sometimes necessary, because if you don't give the nutrients, don't give the supplements, if you don't
Mm-hmm.
cleanse, this is also important to work on the physical if the disease is already showing up physically, right? But the
Yeah.
cause is emotional. Period. And if you don't deal with that, then it can come
Mm-hmm.
back to you, because the thing
Yeah.
that is making you reach out for something, whatever it is, or making you attract parasites to your belly, or making you throw up, is still there. So I'm totally with you
Mm-hmm.
that it's like all emotional, and that
It
it should
is.
be
Yeah.
taught at school. That's like
It
that should be
should.
taught at school. It's
Yeah.
like the most important thing ever, and like, why don't we teach it?
You know why though, and this is the programming that that our generation has to deprogram for the up and coming, especially when we do become mothers and parents and have children. We're so tapped out from such a young age from our body's intuition. Period. Straight away going to the doctor. I think in Australia here, your first schedule for childhood vaccines is like 8 weeks, and then bang, that you're at the doctor all the time. The mother's at the doctor getting checkups, the baby's at the doctor getting X, Y, and Z. We're constantly in this repetitious system, and through that process, we hand our power over. We don't know, we don't have the confidence to listen to our body anymore. So something comes up, we get tickle in the throat, we go to the doctor and say, "What's wrong with me? Tell me what's wrong with me." When
Yeah,
really we know, but we've become so disconnected from our body, from her functions, from her wisdom, that we then ask somebody else to tell us what's wrong with us. That whole
exactly.
concept, even in itself, blows my mind. But what
Yeah.
happens is, this is why we see so much illness and disease these days, is because our emotional body is screaming at us through our physical body and we're not listening. And so that's why we're getting arthritis, diabetes, respiratory issues, even just childhood learning disabilities, like everything that's on the rise in the last 30 to 50 years, which is just so intense, is our emotional body trying to bring us back to oneness with ourselves. And this is where the plants come in. This is what I love about the plants, and what you said before about, we do have to have a physical approach to it for sure. Like when you're healing your digestive system, you need to have the supplements. You need to be eating the right food, having the right herbs, doing all those things. And you need to address the emotional side of why your digestive system is doing what it does. And this is where plants work on both. And this is where they're so profound and so amazing. And this is why I'm a
Tell
plant
us
witch,
more,
is
please.
because they have their physical properties, right? So, keeping it relative to the digestive system, say you would use peppermint because it will help calm it down, soothe it, get rid of bloating. So you're getting all those physical benefits. But then you have the energetics, and this is the essence of the plant, or the spirit of the plant, or the elements that it embodies, whether it be fire or air or water, or earth, and that then start to correlate with your internal energetics as well. And that's when you get full spectrum holistic healing, is when you have something that actually is able to penetrate every system of the body. And the plants can do that, which is so profound. So yes, we do need the physical aspect, but like you said, we need the emotional. And where do we get that from? We get that from her. We get that from the earth. Whether we get it in essential oils, or we get it in herbs, tinctures, whatever form, even tea. Even tea, you can have highly spiritual experiences with a cup of tea, but then have all the physical benefits too. So I listened to something really awesome today. It's a herbalist in America that I love, and he said that humans, how am I going to get this right? We're just like the vehicle for the plants to get their messages through, to be heard, to be felt. So they don't really need us, because they're incredible and they do their thing, but they need us to then get their wisdom out into the world, to get them heard, to get them felt, to get them used. I was like, yeah, it's not us that's cool, it's them.
Yes.
We're just sharing their message. So if you want like full, and this is what I love about holistic health too, it's like, it's a layered approach, you know, and we can talk about things and modalities like breath work and yoga and sound healing and all of these beautiful things. But if you layer the plants into those, you're going to have an incredibly amplified experience, incredibly healing experience. And, you know, I can definitely put my hand up to being a receiver of that magic. Like even in many breathwork sessions that I've done, if I've gone in, even not even with an intention, but with my intuition. For example, I remember when I did my first breathwork, I was running out the door, didn't even know what breathwork was, just went because my friend went and he looked really cool after he did it. So I was like, I'm just going to go do that because that looks cool. And I had no idea what I was signing up for. Oh my God, if I knew, I probably wouldn't. And as I was running out the door, I picked up an oil that was called Forgive, and it's actually my least favorite oil. It smells like mozzie spray. And I was like, oh, I don't know why I'm picking this, but I'll trust it, whatever, grab it and we'll go. I got to the breathwork session. I put the oil on my pulse points. I rubbed it into my hand, took a couple of deep belly breaths before I started doing the breathing. And all of these flooding memories of my childhood came back up, and my relationship with my stepdad, and how he always used to call me when he was going to threaten to commit suicide. So he wouldn't call my mom or my brother. It was always me. And I remember being so angry as a kid. Like, I'm 13 years old. Why would you call me and put that responsibility on me? Fuck you. Like, so much anger towards him. And then saw that some of that patterning had then played out in my adult years, which is why, obviously, you know, I thought trying to commit suicide was a smart thing to do. But then in that breathwork session, I had a complete perspective shift. I was lying there going through the motions and going back and living through that experience, and it dropped in. Chloe, he came to you because he trusts you. He came to you because you are the healer in the home. Just like you're the healer now in your home, you were that healer when you were 13 years old. And it was nothing to do with trying to project pain or anger on you. He came to you because he knew you could see him. He knew you could help him. This is love. He came to you in love. And I was like, oh! And I had forgive all over me, right? So I'm having this big emotional relief, all this forgiveness, all of this energy that I didn't even realize that I was still holding on to was coming out of my body. Oh, wow, came out of it, was mind blown because, like I said, I didn't even know it was still sitting there. But guess what happened physically? And this was so interesting. My gums had bled for 8 years since having my daughter. At that time, she was about 8 when I did my first breath work. And I thought it was just from pregnancy. I thought, oh, okay, well, you know, the kids have taken everything out of me. They've sucked the life out of me. My gums are just going to bleed now because I had really good oral hygiene. Ever since I did that breath work session, my gums have never bled ever again. And I was so intrigued. So I started looking into it. I was like, what's the emotional representation of your gums? And it was grief, letting go of grief. And so I'd let go of all that pain and grief that I'd had created around what I thought my version of that experience with my stepdad was. Through that breathwork session, my body had released the trauma through the breath, and my physical body paid me back for it, you know, in a beautiful way. So it's mind-blowing. But I do want to quickly just say what I was saying about layering modalities is when we're doing something like breath work, we are able to activate the dormant trauma within our fascia. So the fascia holds our memories, and they sit there, and that's why we get aches and pains in certain areas, because we generally ignore what's going on. And so we activate it. But what happens when we add in a plant like an essential oil, when we inhale it, we activate the amygdala in the brain that actually allows the memory to switch back on within the body too. And when you switch it back on and you activate it with the breath and you bring it forward with motion, body work, you can move the trauma out of the body incredibly quickly. It's profound.
Wow.
So you have like instant results.
This is
instant
amazing.
results. And you know what's even cooler about that is you actually realize that you're the one that facilitates the healing. No one else does it except for you. Like, you are a complete and utter control of healing your own body.
This
How
is
cool is that?
amazing.
That's so outside of the system. Then you're not relying
This
on
is
anyone telling you
amazing.
what you
Thank you
need.
for sharing that. I would never think to use oils for breath work, like just to combine these two modalities. But now it makes so much sense when you're explaining this. So thank you so much for sharing. And I have one
You're welcome.
quick little question at the end, because I'm really curious. Why did you choose cacao as the medicine? And maybe you could share with everyone just what does cacao bring out? Like what does it heal and how to use it? Because I run cacao ceremonies as well. And I'm really curious about your perspective on it as a
Yeah.
plant witch.
I love that. I love it. So my first experience with cacao was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Like I said, I don't really do things by halves. So I'd never had it before. And I went and sat in a overnight shamanic cacao ceremony and literally blew my socks off and was like, whoa, what just happened? Oh my God. And for me, it was such a homecoming. Again, it was one of those moments where I realized how incredibly powerful my body was when placed in the right situations with the right intention. Because if I could go to those places just by having a cup of cacao, oh my God, wow. So I think I traveled back to like 7 past lives in my first cacao ceremony and was like, how do I integrate this? This is a lot. But then from there, that kind of became like a little benchmark for me. So I sat with this same woman kind of like every 6 months as a little homecoming honoring to myself as I kind of deepened my own growth and healing journey. And I had no intention at all to ever serve the medicine. It was very personal medicine for me at that point. And I've always used her with a lot of reverence. I wasn't someone that just kind of got up in the morning and made a cacao and drank it because I can. It was always like, I'll only have her when I can sit mindfully and really, respect the medicine. And then in 2019, I got to go to Guatemala and drink the cacao from the land, which was profound. Even more profound knowing now that was going to be the last time I traveled because the world was about to burn. So Guatemala has a very, very soft spot in my heart. And yeah, there was all these little tendrils that were weaving, but it wasn't until I met my partner. And so we met 3 weeks before lockdown hit in Melbourne, and decided just to bite the bullet and move in together and blend our families. So we have 5 children, all the same age, 4 of them boys. So there's a lot of testosterone in my home. And cacao became a daily medicine for us to navigate the newness of our relationship, to make sure that we were like still anchored into the heart and, we kind of stayed in our little bubble, right? Our little love bubble while the world felt like it was falling around outside of us. And through that, I really deepened my own relationship with her, but it was quite new for him. So then being able to witness her work her magic on someone that you love so deeply externally to you deepened my level of love for her, how profound her medicine was. And it was actually Jamie that said, because I was getting asked all the time, where do you get your cacao from? How do you make it? Because we have a little blend that we create. And he looked at me and he's like, why are you not bringing cacao to Australia? Why are we not, helping get it to the people? Because they're clearly coming to you and then they make it from the recipe that you give them and it tastes like shit and they never drink it again. And we know right in this moment while COVID is going on, people need this heart medicine. He's like, come on, Chloe, get your shit together. Let's do this. So our business was birthed from that place. It's called the Sacred Elixir. And what we have done is actually gotten the recipe and put it into pods. So all you need to do is pop the pod into a pot with some warm milk or some warm water and then blend it up and your cacao's ready to go. So it takes the guesswork out of it. So really what I guess we are is like that bridge that kind of brings people into cacao for the first experience because it can be quite overwhelming, because it is so big in the spiritual world. Some people are so scared to touch it, right? And we want everyone to have an experience with her. She's a people medicine. She needs to be in people's hearts and people's homes, and we need to be using her often. And I was like, I want to bring ease and grace to the everyday ritual side of cacao. Let's do that. So he was the brains behind getting all the mechanics of it working, and she was birthed from there. So we source her from Guatemala, from the land that I went to, from Lake Atitlan, from a beautiful Mayan women's co-op. the best cacao that I can say that I've honestly had to date. And then we always knew that we would go deeper with her. So I am really big on holding the medicine with deep reverence. It was never like, we're just going to have a tangible product and that's it. It's like, no. If we're going in to have her as a product, we need to hold space for her too. So we will sit in ceremony. So we do really deep ceremonies with her where we give a ceremonial dose. And then we travel through breath and through sound. And it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey. So for me, she's like a homecoming, she's she brings me straight back into my center. I think she's such a sacred vessel for connection and community and for bringing people together, especially through the times that we've just walked through as humanity. There's no mistake why she's made herself so known in the last couple of years, why she's so popular now. She's like, humans, you have no time to waste. You need the medicine, so she is coming through, and she's coming through in the people that need to share her message, like you and I. It's not just any Joe Blow that holds a cacao ceremony. The people that really hold their medicine know what they're working with. They understand the energetics. I was listening to the lady who runs Anamundi Herbs, and she was saying that cacao has one of the highest energetic spirits of any plant on the planet. So it goes beyond the science. It goes beyond the incredible, physical properties and magic that she provides for our body in that way, her nutrients and all of her good content.
Wow,
It's like the energy of cacao spirit is like huge.
So now I
transformative,
understand.
and that's why we feel
Now
it.
I understand why chocolate is my favorite food ever. Like if I had to choose one specific food that I eat until the end of my days, it would be chocolate for sure. Because I just love cacao. It's just so, I don't know, nurturing for me. It just feels so good. And of course, you can have good type of chocolate and not that good type of chocolate for sure. I'm vegan, so I only eat vegan chocolate. But yeah, I can resonate with the cacao and the quality as well, because when I went to Costa Rica and I tried the cacao there and the chocolate there and everything, it's like a whole other level of medicine, I feel. And so Peru, Costa Rica, Guatemala, I guess these countries are just really, because they are so shamanic in nature as well, they just have really profound medicines that we can reach. And even in Poland, I'm ordering the cacao from Peru so that it's like really pure and really, really on point.
But like the land and the people, they have such respect for the medicine, and you can feel it the whole way through. You can feel the energetics of it, which is amazing. And I also love that she's, for me, I feel a true embodiment of the light and the dark. We do talk about her a lot as a heart medicine, as a heart expander, which she definitely is, but she has the shadow aspect. She allows us to go into the depths of the void and sit there. You would know from sitting in your own cacao ceremonies, sometimes you sit in the void the whole time, and it feels like shit when you're there. God damn, I wanted an incredibly expansive experience, but that the medicine comes afterwards. That's why I was in the void. So she does bring forth that shadow that as humans we try to avoid. She's like, no. If you're going to have the light, you've got to have the dark too, right? So I love that about her. I love that about her magic. And I love that people are embodying more of the wholeness of the energetics that she offers us. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's amazing. So we gotta finish now, but I would love you to share how people can find you, because I know that you have a homecoming container coming soon, like 5 weeks of a beautiful container that you're guiding. So if someone would be interested in that or just in your services, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah. So the best place to find me, where I probably hang out the most, is Instagram. You find so much of your soul fam there, don't you?
I
You do. You just
know.
find your people. So my handle's conscious_Chloe. And then all of my links are up in my bio there. So, my website's there, all of my offerings that we do. So I have a lot of in-person offerings. I'm just starting to move to the online world. I've had so much resistance to that. I'm so old school, but I'm like, that's the way the world's going. We need to become more digital. Chloe, get your ass into gear. So yeah, my homecoming container, it starts in a few weeks, and that's really just bringing us back into oneness with earth pace, and nature and her cycles and how they are represented in us in particular as women. So I'm really excited for that. But yeah, all of my stuff generally goes up on the gram.
That
It's an easy
sounds
place
freaking
to connect.
amazing. This container sounds amazing. And thank you so much for sharing your
you.
medicine and your experience as well, to inspire people to work with the medicine, to inspire them that they can heal anything really. And just, you just need to
Yeah.
really turn inwards and see what's there. So thank you so much for being on this podcast with us, because truly your medicine and your energy is amazing. So I'm super grateful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was such a joy.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, beautiful humans, for listening to us. I feel like I could chat to Chloe for ages or hours more, but yeah, we had to finish it up. But if you would like to find me and chat to me as well, I'm the Connection Catalyst on Instagram. If you need some shadow work or some support, please reach out to me. Or if you'd like to be interviewed, maybe you're a healer or a coach, please contact me there. And stay tuned to the next episode. Thank you so much for being with us.